Stories from Real Life is a powerful podcast where everyday people share extraordinary true stories that inspire, move, and connect us. Melvin E. Edwards asks questions that you didn't even know you needed answered. Each episode gives you a lesson to learn, a reason to believe, and a second chance to be your best self. Listen to new episodes of Stories from Real Life every Tuesday and Friday. Pardon me while I go listen to this new episode right now.
On today's edition of Stories from Real Life with Melvin E. Edwards. Our guest for this episode is Drew Carmichael, and he joins us from Australia. Drew Carmichael heads the Cultivator, a plug-and-play growth engine for e-commerce stores and service businesses. Drew flipped his natural grit into $300,000 in sales before adulthood, then $400,000 for himself, and over $4 million for clients.
That's what I did. And I didn't go through like a whole sales pitch. I was just 100% honest, like, look, he showed me his website and I said, look, you need to make these few changes. He went away and did those changes and he was like, wow, you've really made a big difference to my site. Can I just pay you to do more? And in fact, that was possibly the changing moment for me to go, wow, there's a huge potential in this agency model in helping cultivate people's businesses, and let's just make that a thing.
By the way, Drew is only 19 years old. Let's join today's episode with Drew Carmichael.
You are listening to Stories from Real Life, a podcast by engaging storytellers for engaged story listeners. Here's your host, author and journalist, Melvin E. Edwards.
Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Stories from Real Life. I'm your host, Melvin E. Edwards. Thanks for joining me for the podcast where personal stories can have a global impact. This podcast now has listeners in 70 countries, and one of those is Australia, where our guest today, Drew Carmichael, joins us. Drew, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Melvin. It's so awesome to be on and share my story.
So what time is it there where you are?
Well, right now it is 7:07 a.m. on a Saturday. Super keen to jump on, though, and it'd be brilliant to obviously tell everyone in these 70 countries our story and hopefully provide some little insights along the way on, I'm not going to say success, but maybe on how to scale a business if there's any business owners listening. And yeah, it'd be great to tell it.
That sounds great. Thank you for joining us so early on a Saturday morning. I really appreciate that.
Not a stress.
So I've heard you say that you're busier than a one-armed bricklayer. Is that a common saying in Australia?
Oh yeah, it's a yeah. Well, in Australia we have a lot of funny sayings, and that's definitely one of them. Or you could say my calendar's more full than a state school hat rack. But there's so many different sayings. We really like to make everything a lot more casual in Australia. I don't know if you saw that ad from a little while back saying, come down to Australia and we'll pop a shrimp on the barbie. That doesn't exist, but, we always like coming up with those funny sayings that mean absolutely nothing. They just sound funny.
They do sound funny with the accent. It's perfect. In America, we think everybody who's Australian is Crocodile Hunter or Crocodile Dundee. That's our only frame of reference. That's about it for us.
Oh, there you go.
So you're 19 years old. So relatively speaking, it wasn't that long ago when you were in primary school. What was your life like growing up in Townsville? Well,
that's a great question. It's such a funny city as well. Like, I don't know if you've seen the Powerpuff Girls, but that's the city that they call, because it's like Townsville. It's a really funny word. But look, growing up in Townsville was interesting. I went to a couple of schools because I just didn't really fit in anywhere. And that sort of was probably the biggest one of the biggest drivers for me to start a business, because, not being able to sort of have a large group of friends or people that I can rely on all the time to ask questions or have backup where it's needed in school. Like I forgot my homework, I'll just rely on someone else. That was possibly a really big driver into sort of fending for myself. And that is pretty much what entrepreneurship is, because you just got to, when you're faced with a failure, you got to find out the best solution to that failure in the moment. You can't sort of go, oh, well, what if I didn't do it? And then just think back in the past. So look, growing up in Townsville was really interesting, and it wasn't a big city, but it also wasn't the middle of nowhere. So, you had enough freedom to be able to sort of roam around and just within walking distance, you could get to places relatively easy. It wasn't the most safest place in the world. There's quite a bit of crime in Townsville, but look, it was a great city to grow up in. And as I've gotten older, I've definitely moved to a different city just because it's there's more people here, there's more things happening. And as we were talking about before the pod, Melvin, it'd be great to move to Texas or somewhere in the US just for a couple of years or maybe longer, depending on how I feel, to just get and extend that network. And in my experience of, even though I didn't have many friends at school, I find that once people mature and actually get a sense that everyone else is human, building a network of people that are like-minded outside your little bubble that was Townsville or that was, your school, it's super powerful to have a really powerful network and build connections through there.
That's great. What kind of business did you begin when you were still a child?
Great question, Melvin. So look, the business that I had when I was a child, it was actually quite simple. And I really do believe in that when you're starting out in entrepreneurship, to not go full beans and create the next, HSBC bank or, something massive, because you need to, it's one thing to work at a 9-to-5 job and understand ticking off tasks, but to actually create the tasks from nothing and create and build is such a different aspect of achieving a business, right? And to go back to your question on what I built as a child, I was 13 at the time, and essentially the Australian version of Walmart came out with a little collectible item, which was it was called Stickies, and they went nuts essentially. So every $30 that you spend at a grocery store, you get one of these things at random, and you got to build a collection of 20. And kids around the country were just going nuts about them. And I was like, hey, you know what? Could probably capitalize on this trend and just sell them on Marketplace and sell them on eBay. And then I posted them. Maybe it was a little bit against the regulations, but I posted them in letters and just sent them straight around the country. And I made a couple $1,000s from that, which was really quite shocking, especially for little Drew at the time, where 5 figures of money was a pretty decent amount to see coming in. Having said that, though, there were failures along the way, and that they definitely did teach me a big lesson.
And what inspired you to start your first e-commerce business?
Well, it depends what you classify an e-commerce business is. The e-com, in my opinion, is businesses on the internet. Any business on the internet is e-commerce. So you could probably say the little Stickies reselling business that 13-year-old Drew had was an e-com business. But when the real e-commerce business started when I was doing Amazon, and that was after my Stickies thing. And I had a feeling that, I was spending so much time getting the Stickies, buying them from people at school, be quiet about that. But then I was reselling them. I had to go to the post office. I had to send them. I had to write the address down manually. And I found that Amazon did all of that automatically. They had a thing called FBA, and they still do, Fulfillment by Amazon. And obviously, I wasn't reselling Stickies there because there wasn't enough margin in them, or there was percentage-wise a big margin, but not value, the price, the money. So I was shipping bulk loads of just random products in Amazon. So massage guns and aroma diffusers, and at one stage there was like a pimple extraction device that I was shipping into Amazon, and it was all riding on the back of trends on the volume of search terms. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. But at one stage, that is where it really started taking off. And that is where the money sort of started coming in. There was a failure associated with that, though, that at one stage when I had 100 load of massage guns, and it was like my third or fourth 100 of massage guns in Amazon, they changed their regulations as they were on a boat, because, of course, sea shipping takes months to get to Australia, at least from China. And the massage guns needed a certain verification tick on them to be approved to go into Amazon. They didn't have that. So 100 massage guns rocked up at my front door at my house in the back of someone's car, which was it was a shock, to say the least, to have 100 massage guns, because I do use a massage gun every now and then, but I don't use anywhere near than 100. So I had to work out a way to get rid of them. And that was actually going back to the eBay model. And an element of that was little Drew swallowing his pride because, he doesn't have much friends. He wanted to make a name for himself. And then this massive failure that really it was $4,500 USD worth of massage guns. which was, again, big money for Drew, not necessarily big money in the scheme of things, but big money for Drew at the time. And it was just tough. So had to work out a way of recouping that investment into the inventory.
Wow, that's interesting. Would have thought about massage guns being an investment opportunity.
Yeah.
But, all right, now you run a business called the Cultivator. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, the Cultivator is sort of a culmination of everything that I've done in the past, and it's a really, really awesome way to build a fantastic network and relationships with people. We scale people's businesses, we cultivate people's businesses, and that is either in e-commerce, which is selling online as we've established, and also lead-based businesses. So let's say someone needs to generate a lead to be able to provide their service, or they need to, coaching, consulting agencies, or, appointment-based businesses. We also scale them. Why? You might go, well, these are two very different sort of businesses. Yes, they are. And that is why we have two different wings. So we started obviously with the e-com, and I did $300,000 of sales before I turned 19 for myself. So I was like, we may as well just build on the knowledge that we have and bring on some really knowledgeable team as well to be able to do e-com. And to generate e-com clients, we were generating our agency leads. So we were like, hey, we're doing it all for ourselves. We may as well do it for other people as well. And that is quite simply my passion, because, throughout my whole life, I've been building stuff. Even before I started the entrepreneurship ventures or the businesses or the reselling of Stickies, I was building robots and just creating random things. And that is just honestly my biggest passion. And that's why I love doing it for other people. And we've generated some crazy results. Last year, in the Cultivator, we launched a hydrogen jet aircraft in London. It wasn't in London, it was a Switzerland-based company, and we did their email marketing campaigns and increased their open rates by 3-4 times, which was insane. And we simply achieve those results because we treat all of our clients as if their business was a child, or is a child of theirs. Because every single business that I've started, I put so much time into it, it's just like a baby of mine, right? And that is how I've expected my businesses to be treated, and I'm sure and I know that is how other clients expect their businesses to be treated as well. And, when I was running all these e-com businesses, Amazon, I was in contact with agencies, and agencies always burnt me. They were like, yeah, we can do it. And then they just forgot about me for the next month, right? And that is what we don't do for our clients. And look, the way we achieve that is something really, really interesting. We have a pod-based mentality. So we actually keep track of what our team is working with and who they're working with. And then once they're full, per se, like someone can only work with a certain amount of people, of course, it's common sense. We just go, all right, let's bring on a whole new pod. Let's bring on a whole new set of people to deal with new clients. And we train them up in a specific way. I have a bunch of videos with Drew just going, this is how you do things. So it's a really sort of a system that we're scaling up. But honestly, the crux of it is that we just deal with our clients as if their businesses was a baby of ours.
Okay. As an Australian, have you ever gotten into a fight with a kangaroo or a dingo?
Wow, that's definitely an interesting question. No, I haven't. I've driven past a bunch of dead kangaroos. In Townsville, there was actually a bunch of wallabies, so they're like little kangaroos out the back of my house, and I fed them. Actually, no, didn't. Okay, Australian government didn't feed them.
He definitely
fed kangaroos that
they stole food from Drew.
yeah. The food's gone. No, you can feed wallabies and kangaroos at certain zoos, and it's, out of your hand. It's pretty awesome. There is definitely some interesting wildlife around Australia. I've definitely spent more time, I would say, in the water with Australian wildlife than I have on land. I don't know why. Probably because it's so hot and the water's nice and cold, and I can just, chill out in there. But yeah, there's definitely been some interesting encounters with sharks and let's not get eaten today. Probably the best idea. Yeah.
That seems like a steadfast plan. Always don't get eaten today is a steady way to go.
Well, yeah, you can't worry about tomorrow. just no, not today. Yeah.
So you were once cooking steaks for dinner at home while managing an aircraft launch all the way in London. So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So there was a funny one actually. So because of the time zone difference, of course, right? A late at night or a sort of, or was it morning? Oh, no, it was morning. My apologies. A morning event that was occurring in London. I was having to watch on a live stream on my phone, and it was like I really had to have dinner because I did all this preparation before the event to get the emails running and to get the stuff prepped. I ended up cooking steaks on the barbecue while I was watching this thing, and managing the Telegram channels to make sure everything's flowing all right. But I don't want to say that I always, when I'm on a client call, I cook dinner, because that's not what I do. But just this one instant, it was really funny. I was watching the fruits of my labor come to life on my phone while I was just flipping steaks on the barbecue. And trust me, I did get it nice, medium rare while I was doing this. I'm not a good multitasker, but this moment, that was good.
You got to keep your priorities straight. Steaks.
100%.
Ahead of everything else. So speaking of steaks, have you ever been to an Outback Steakhouse?
Well, that's the Australian Outback Steakhouse in the US, is it not?
Yes.
Yes. When I was in the US last, I saw
with blooming onions.
Oh yeah, no. Well, what's the difference between an Outback Steakhouse and a normal steakhouse?
Nothing really. The commercials have an Australian accent. That's about it.
They just go, "G'day, mate. How you doing? Can I get you a
yes? That's what they
on
say.
The barbecue, mate. Yeah, right. You go. Okay.
Yes,
that's cool.
But you've never been to an Outback Steakhouse?
Not in the US. I don't think we have any here. We just have like normal barbecues. If you're looking for a good Australian barbecue, it's called a Weber. It's Weber, I think, or two B's, can't remember. But oh man, they cook some good steaks. If I'm ever in Texas and you need a steak, get me a rib fillet or something, and I'll whip it up for you.
I've actually been to a Weber Steakhouse in Chicago.
Oh,
so they have those here in the United States too.
They do. Okay, there you go.
They do. All right. So you once had a meeting with one of your best clients on a super yacht at an air show. What happened there?
Well, okay. So this was a few years ago, and it's really an interesting story because it's funny. I did tell you to ask me this question, and I haven't been asked it on a podcast before. So there you go. But yeah, no. Look, this was an air show down at the Gold Coast in Australia, just off the coast, the East Coast. And this is really an important way to meet people, just be open to every single opportunity. So a friend of ours decided to invite us out on a boat. It wasn't a promotion, it was like just a get-together of their friends and stuff. And it turns out that one of my best clients now was on that boat. And it was sort of hard to chat because there was like F-18s going past and like helicopters and Chinooks and all this stuff. Like it was an epic day. Let me just say that it was an epic day. But on the boat was a client and a potential client, right? I obviously didn't know that at the start. But as we started talking and as we just treat each other like a normal person, it turns out they had an e-com store that they needed scaled. And right now, we're really good mates now. And just from meeting each other on that boat, I know it's a super yacht. I know, not every day you get to go out on a super yacht and watch like fighter jets and stuff have like an air show. But in that moment, you sort of have to go, let's just be a normal person. Let's just treat everyone else like a normal person and just have a genuine conversation. That's what I did. And I didn't go through like a whole sales pitch. I was just 100% honest. Like, look, he showed me his website and I said, look, you need to make these few changes. He went away and did those changes and he was like, wow, you've really made a big difference to my site. Can I just pay you to do more? And in fact, that was possibly the changing moment for me to go, wow, there's a huge potential in this agency model in helping cultivate people's businesses. And let's just make that a thing. So look, all in all, the air show was epic. Like the planes were whizzing past and all of that stuff. But you just got to go, you know what? Let's just have a genuine conversation. Let's enjoy the moment with other people because you never know who you're going to meet and everyone's a human. So you may as well just enjoy it with everyone. Enjoy your experience with everyone. And chances are you could probably partner up with a few people.
That sounds like a good plan. So did your family support your business ventures as you've grown up?
That's a great question. So are you talking about monetary or are you talking about just in general? Because I would like to say
in general. In
general? Okay. So look, they at the start, Dad was like, look, I'm not going to give you too much money because, you're you need to work out if this is actually going to work, right? And that's pretty much just what happened. And I did make it work. But in general, that is very, very interesting because they really wanted me to go to university. They really, I didn't go to university, and it's sort of tough because if you don't go to university, you sort of miss out on, at least in Australia, you miss out on the scholarship opportunities that you get if you go straight from school or you tell the university you're going to take a gap year. I didn't really do either. And I got some great scholarship opportunities, and my family was like, look, Drew, they were a bit apprehensive, and the last thing I want to do is can out my family, right? And, I really appreciate their support, their support now and their support across the whole time. But there's definitely been moments that it was tough to say to them, look, I get it, and I get your wisdom, I get your years and years of experience on me, and I get how, concerned you might be for me giving up this opportunity, but I feel as though, and this is me saying that, I feel as though that I just got to make this leap of faith and back myself and trust my ability in this. And ever since that decision, I pretty much have not stopped working. There's been no alternative for my channel. Yeah, I can't really fall back on a university degree right now because I've consciously decided. It was definitely an option to go to university, but I've consciously decided, and a little bit insanely decided, to go on this venture to create a business on its own.
Well, I'm guessing you haven't had second thoughts about that because you seem to have been pretty successful. So how did you feel when you hit your first six-figure milestone before you turned 18 years old?
That was, I actually didn't realize because I'm so focused in the month to date or the week to date figures on that store. I checked back a few weeks later. I'm like, oh, I'm already 110, 120. So it's like, I just didn't realize. It was like a microscopic party popper moment. I don't know if you guys have those in I was like, oh, I achieved it. Oh, well, it is what it is. But that was way before I realized something really, really key. You got to celebrate your wins because now, when I have more and more stuff happening, at that point when I was just focusing on one thing, that was cool. When you're focusing on one thing, you can have a loss, but your losses are sort of limited. And when there's multiple things occurring, you could have multiple wins at the same time, or one win and 5 losses at the same time, or just 6 losses or 7 losses. And I'm not just talking about monetary losses, but relationship losses or, agreement losses, or, someone didn't sign a contract, or, you've lost a team member or anything like that. And that is really, really tough. Even though you've had wins previously, even though, I might be doing better than certain people or worse than certain people, it's because of the human condition, it's sometimes really, really important to just go, look, we made a loss here, but we need to move. And humans, I find, really focus on those losses. And it's really tough, especially in entrepreneurship. When you fail, you got to take it as a learning curve because traditionally, and especially, in university and in school, a fail means you're not going to get it. It's pretty simple. If you fail a subject, you're not going to get whatever you sought to achieve. So a degree, a doctorate, or whatever. But in entrepreneurship, if you fail, then there's definitely, you have to move forward. You know what I mean? If you fail, to get the money or to get the relationship or to get to the success, and I'm putting success in inverted commas because success can be whatever you want in entrepreneurship. You just got to work out a way to move forward at that point in time. But at university, you fail and you just go back to the start, right? So it's definitely tough to deal with that, but you have to focus on the wins when you first get, and when I first got those 6 figures, it was definitely not celebrated enough.
All right, I've got one very serious question about your mother's side of the family.
Sure.
So your mother's family survived the Nazi camps and fled to Australia to begin a new life there. What kind of stories did you hear growing up about those relatives? Yeah,
totally. So, look, I'm only really learning it now because it's such a tough thing, in my opinion, to sort of tell a young kid because, just so everyone knows, my mum's side of the family, Pavic was their last name, and they went from around Slovenia, and they went from in there, and they were in a concentration camp for a minute, and then they fled from there on a boat to Australia, and they started building this train track across the north of Australia because they had no money. And that was, look, it's in my opinion, it's really tough to hear, but it also is a massive motivator because the amount of effort they would have put in just to stay alive, you know, there was obviously no TV, there was no social media, there was no telephones, there was, you know, nothing like that. And compared that to the luxuries that we have now, one, it just makes you feel very grateful for what you have. But also it's like, gee whiz, I can't let these people down because they sure didn't give up. You know, the father that migrated to Australia, he kept a physical paper ledger of all the money that was coming in and going out, albeit it wasn't anywhere close to, you know, 6 figures USD or anything like that. But he still kept a track of it because every single gain, every single win, and this is coming back to monitoring those winnings, right? They were worth it. And there was a massive failure. Like, I mean, if it's so tough to even think about, even comprehend what it was like in their living conditions, right? But they had to be focused on the wins. And that's why I'm here now, because they were focused on those little wins and they were focused on keep pushing even when there's failure in their insight. So yeah, they built this massive train track and the conditions would have been horrendous in the north of Australia. And obviously there was no like air conditioning or anything close to that. So it was just would have been diabolical. And it is just insane to think about how they were able to keep their mental fortitude and just keep pushing through. And that, in my opinion, is just one of the biggest motivators that I've ever had. Even though I haven't met the people that immigrated to Australia from concentration camp, because of course, if you think about the dates, that's insensible to think that I would have been able to. But the stories that they passed down are absolutely insane. You know, coming on that boat and escaping out of that concentration camp. It was towards the end of the war as well, so obviously it was more lenient in terms of around Germany. But the amount of motivation that you get from thinking that your relatives have put up with that strain and stress, and I'm sure there's a lot of this in the US as well. You know, people thinking about what their relatives had to go through and what toll it has put on their direct relatives. Then that is just an insane amount of motivation to make them proud and make their life. You know, of course their life was worth it, but make their life worth bringing you up, 100% worth it.
Have you ever had to use that as a direct motivation when you felt stuck or felt like you were not accomplishing what you had hoped to at a certain point?
Look, there is always times that I have to bring on some sort of motivation, you know, whether that's thinking of what they had to go through, thinking of, you know, who raised me. In fact, actually, next week, I'm doing a speech for my grandmother's funeral. She raised me quite a lot through my childhood while my parents were working, and you know, she took me to school, brought me back from school, you know, helped me with my homework, everything like that, helping her write speeches and whatever. And she just passed away last week, and I, you know, thinking of that and her effort that she put into my life directly as well, you know, you can't let her down. You can't let her sort of think that, you know, she went to all this effort to bring me up and let her down. So, you know, everything that I think is just who has put effort into your life to make you who you are. And yes, you can think about what your choices, what bad choices you've made, and you could feel bad about them, and you can wish that you didn't make those choices. But the only thing that you can change is now, and make them proud from the future choices that you make, or that I make, or whoever makes. So that is exactly what I do think of, Melvin. You're entirely right.
All right, and I'm sorry for your loss, your grandmother.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, let's go back to your businesses. What are your favorite tools for scaling an e-commerce store?
Oh, I like this question. Okay, cool. Let me reframe my brain as well, because that was a very deep question you asked me before, so I need to sort of reframe
Yes.
now. But so scaling an e-com store is a very conscious and constant task, because some people think that it's a side hustle. Some people think that it's a passive income. Personally, I very much dislike the word passive income, because unless you can pay a team of people to manage money, then nothing is really passive income if you have direct control over it. So And an e-com store is exactly direct control. So an e-com store, I highly recommend to be on Shopify. I don't recommend WordPress or WooCommerce unless you're a really massive store that has the ability to, use WooCom, design it in a certain way. And because WooCommerce has a lot better payment fees and a lot better, if you're doing a large amount of payments and sales volume, then WooCommerce will suit that a lot better because it has a lot less fees. But Shopify is fantastic for the lower startup stores that are just getting started. So maybe less than like $1 million a month or something, like they can still get pretty large in Shopify. But Shopify is great. So use Shopify. That's my first tool. Second tool, I would definitely recommend to make sure that you have the Google and YouTube app installed on Shopify and also the Meta app installed on Shopify. So Shopify is really great with apps because you can just add tools in there and make sure that you're on those because you can't sell a secret. And we tell clients that all the time. If you open up a Shopify store, even if you have a brick and mortar business and you open up a website, chances are you'll get no visitors to the website because you just need to market it in a certain way. So that can be organic or that can be paid. And by installing the Google and YouTube app, which is one app, and installing the Meta app to Shopify, it allows you to get listed on Google and YouTube and also Meta, which is Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. So those are really, really important. And then after you do that, I highly recommend ensuring that the Google and YouTube app is connected to Merchant Center, which allows your products to be brought through to the shopping page on Google, and then also installing Microsoft Clarity on the e-commerce websites. In fact, install Microsoft Clarity onto any website you have. That can be on WordPress, that can be on Wix, Webflow, Framer, it could be on Shopify, anywhere. Install Microsoft Clarity because Microsoft Clarity allows you to see what people are doing on your website to the extent of watching back recordings where people are clicking, where they've come from, the heat maps, and essentially how they're converting. And by doing that, you'll be able to sort of take the mystery of why people are leaving. So it might be because a button's not working. It might be because they have to scroll too far. It might be because they get confused and start clicking in a random spot and you go, well, I'll just put the button there. So they click on the button. So yeah, it's really important to use Microsoft Clarity because there are no other free heat map tools. And I've spent so much time trying to find a good one. Microsoft Clarity is the best. So with Microsoft Clarity, we were actually able to find that we made sales from ChatGPT, which is a really, really interesting observation.
That's really interesting. I wasn't even aware of Microsoft Clarity. So I'll have to make sure I include a link in the show notes when this episode airs. So what's your go-to strategy for negotiating with manufacturers?
Oh, okay. Great question. So negotiating with manufacturers is something I love to do. And I love doing business with, I know this is going to sound weird, especially talking to an American here, but I love doing business with China because they're just so quick and they will do anything for money. Like they will do anything. In fact, that guy that I had a meeting with on that boat in the air show, he actually just went to China and had a sit-down meeting with his supplier to get better rates, to get better, and then the supplier was like, you know what? I love that this person's gone to the effort. They gave him their biggest boardroom. They gave him, a free lunch, a free lunch in the boardroom. And then he also got it was like a Chinese version of a Rolls Royce to take him back to the hotel and to the, everything like that. So it was insane. So they really do everything for the money. I use Alibaba. Alibaba is really awesome. You can find manufacturers and suppliers in the US from Alibaba as well, which if you want to avoid any potential tariffs that are there. But a lot of the suppliers on Alibaba are actually finding ways around the tariffs right now, which is they have some really, really inventive ways of finding ways around tariffs. I don't want to mention any names. I don't want to mention how they do it, but I've definitely been briefed on a few ways that they're able to do it. I haven't taken advantage of it myself to get around the tariffs, but if you're interested, just reach out to some suppliers on Alibaba. Essentially what I do is I create a script that I copy and paste and I change the name. I essentially say, hi, supplier name. I am a well-established, growing e-commerce business in wherever you're based, or like in Australia. We specialize specifically in the type of products you want to source, so put them in there. We specialize specifically in dog products, and we're interested in ordering a MOQ of 1 for your product here, which then you can inquire on there. The reason why I say an MOQ of 1 or a minimum order quantity of 1 is because I highly believe in starting to try and drop ship products first. Because if you drop ship products first, then you don't have to test you can test the product pretty easily, and you don't have to bring in a large inventory quantity before you test it. Even though the shipping times may be a bit worse, even though you might not get enough customization features, it's best to drop ship and test your abilities. Because if you're just starting up an e-com store or you're just expanding to e-commerce, being able to drop ship will mean that you can test your abilities to market the product. Otherwise, if you're buying, 1,000, if your MAQ is 1,000 and you're buying it for like $20 each, you'll spend $20,000 and then you have $20,000 hanging on the fact that you can market for the first time in your life. So I highly recommend that you drop ship products and then test on there. It might be a slow start, but having the supplier open to that agreement is 100% beneficial.
All right. What's one marketing trend you think entrepreneurs should leverage in 2025?
Oh, okay. All right. I sound like Matthew McConaughey. So look, I think I'm not a trend guy. I tried to capitalize on trends with my first e-com businesses, and that went really well. But the biggest thing though that really carried the business, and I learned it very quickly, was creating a brand. Because if you're capitalizing on a trend, if the trend stops, then your business stops as well. If you create a brand and you take advantage of the trend with the brand, you'll get people into your brand, but then people will buy again because they like your brand. So that sort of lends itself to a trend that's happening now called personal branding. And I think personal branding is huge because people need trust on the internet now. There are so many scammers. There's so many people walking around saying they're Facebook support, or they're walking around saying, they have a crypto coin that'll go to the moon or something like that. And no one trusts anything on the internet these days. So to create something that's trustworthy through a personal brand, it's kind of trending right now, I highly recommend as well. There's a few things, like I recommend ChatGPT as well. Like AI is trending right now. You could definitely say that yourself, 100%. Everyone knows that AI is trending. But there's some big things that I've noticed with AI that people say things are AI that aren't. It's just a computer program. In fact, to an extent, I'm in this Facebook group that sort of bags out AI, and someone posted a photo that they found a screen protector that said enhanced for AI. I don't even know how a screen protector will improve your artificial intelligence anything, but anyway, apparently it said it. So that's what I'm saying. Just be careful on what you think is AI and what you think is not. And also, a lot of AI products use the ChatGPT API. So API is essentially a code that they're able to query ChatGPT, and they pay a discounted amount per token, and that software can just use ChatGPT. So it's essentially you're paying more for the software that has a funky branding, and they're essentially just only using ChatGPT. So be really, really careful of that. Personally, out of all the AI tools I mostly use ChatGPT. I have it for the team, and ChatGPT we just use. I say, look, if you have another AI product, ChatGPT can probably do it because I built it off ChatGPT.
Wow, that's interesting. So you and I are on opposite ends of the earth right now. I'm in the United States. You're in Australia. And you do business all over the place. So how do you recruit and manage a team that spans different countries?
That's a great question. So we have a very, very continuous onboarding scheme. We actually interview between 30 and 50 people a week. And that is really, really important because we don't hire everyone, and we need to have the best of the best. And to have clients all over the world, we interview people from different locations. So we have three teams essentially. We have one for the US or the US area. We have one for the Europe area, and then one for the sort of Australia, Oceania area, because that is sort of the three main time zones. And I hate having people work graveyard shifts. A lot of freelancers and a lot of people in developing countries are very, very keen to work overnight just to get money. And I'm like, that's cool, but it's sort of hard to manage because they could fall asleep. So that's what we do. And we have a whole portal system set up that we've built off. We sort of have a white labeled system that we're able to manage clients in, manage the team. That syncs their tasks through to their time tracking system, which get developed or sent to them once they complete the onboarding training. We have a whole sort of system set up that allows that. And let me tell you, I'm not a procedural kind of guy. I have this, just a mentality of if it's broken, get it fixed. If it's not working, get it fixed. If it needs to be done better, get it done better mentality. So sort of sitting down and going, let me create an SOP for this was quite challenging, but it has to be done to get a team working in a linear fashion.
Okay. So once again, I just have a couple of questions left.
Yeah, sure.
I want to touch on your age. I'm sure that's not your favorite subject, but you are very young. And I'm sure you do lots of business with lots of people who are much, much older than you are. So how do you handle imposter syndrome or self-doubt?
Oh, self-doubt's a tough one because, to be in a world where most of the people that I'm competing with are possibly at least double my age, it is tough. And, I doubt myself a lot. And that shouldn't be done, because if you doubt yourself a lot, who else is going to believe in you? And I have this poster set up behind my camera. It says, if you do not believe in yourself, no one else will. It's written up behind my wall there. So while I'm on my computer, I can see it. So essentially what that means is, well, it's pretty simple. It's self-explanatory. It's common sense. If you don't believe in yourself, if you don't have courage in yourself, how can you show other people to believe in you as well? People are paying me to scale their business and to cultivate their business. Why would they trust me to do that if I don't trust myself to do that? So it's pretty simple. You just got to be the best you can. You just got to believe you're the best, and you just got to do the best. And that is essentially the crux of it. It's a lot of what I do is common sense, and a lot of business is common sense. It's not like, ooh, we have this funky tool that really scales it, because it's pretty easy to find those tools now because of the internet. It's hard to gatekeep something. So it's a lot of common sense, just finding what works and just going ham with that.
Okay, a final question today. What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone starting with no capital?
Okay, starting with no capital. That's interesting. Yeah, look, if you start with no capital, that was very much me. And starting with no capital is possibly the best way to go, because you need to generate a net profit from the get-go if you're starting with no capital. It's very hard to start with no capital and then find them anyway, it doesn't matter. If you start with no capital, then what you need to do is just get the money coming in somehow. So that is selling something small, selling something efficient, telling someone else that you can sell something for them, telling someone else that you can do something for them, like mow their lawn, cut their grass. That's the same thing. Gurney something, which is like pressure wash something. Or, do their dishes, something very simple, just on your own terms. Like you might go, oh, well, I can have a 9-to-5 job that cuts grass. You can, but it's a whole different story to actually find the work yourself and get it done yourself, and then tick that off the box and then move on to the next task. That is what an entrepreneur does, and they just get work done. So that is what I recommend. If you're starting from no capital, just do the unimpressive, the unenjoyable, the possibly embarrassing jobs first, to then get the ball rolling, and then you can scale up from there, whatever that is. Like I have a mate who is a pressure washer. Like it's not like you go to a world function, you say, oh, I'm a pressure washer. Okay, great. But he's just bought his own car. He's just moved out. He's just, he's renting a place. So he's been able to do well for himself by doing the ugly jobs, but it's not ugly for him. It works, and it's all power to him, right? So if you're an entrepreneur, you have zero capital, don't go out and say, hey, I'm going to start an international marketing agency. Build up from the ground, build up from where you need to build from. It's only that people who are really successful now have gone through that process. They've started from somewhere. So don't compare yourself to other people, because you don't know what they've gone through, and your situation is never going to be the same as someone else's.
Well, that's great advice as we start to wind down this conversation today. Our guest today has been teenage businessman Drew Carmichael, who joins us from Australia. Thank you so much, Drew, for being here today. I've enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Melvin. I really do appreciate you as well.
Please go to my website at podcastreallife.com for more information about my guests and the things we discussed today. That's it for today's episode of Stories from Real Life. Join us again next time for another chance to learn from each other. Until then, don't forget to shine your light wherever you go.
That was Stories from Real Life. Join us again next week for another great storytelling journey. See you next time.